today. And thanks for the opportunity for us to show you our Mercury Conference solution by RMS, now a part of the StarRes family. If there's one thing we want you to take away from today's presentation, is that the solutions we provide here at RMS are configurable. We think that your business is dynamic and it's going to be changing. We don't know what problems you might experience tomorrow or the year after. So we've crafted that idea into our solutions so that way you can solve those problems both today and when they come up in the future. By providing configurable solutions, we think that we can better empower our users so that way you can focus on what is the most important aspect of your business, and that's either building your community, developing your students, or serving your clients. So with the idea of configurability in mind, as we walk through the product today, I'm going to show you a number of aspects of our architecture, such as templates, which is the processes that you go through when you're booking your conferences, and how those can be configurable, as well as the ways that your data is displayed, such as in dynamic lists. We call them dynamic because the lists themselves can be configured depending on what data you want to see, in what order you want to see, and what actions you want to take from that list. The same with your operations are configurable. You get Mercury users who can have configured roles and positions, so you can expand or contract how much those roles are able to access throughout the system. And although our system comes with hundreds of system fields, we also give you unlimited capability for custom entities and processes, because again, we're not fortune tellers. We don't know what your business needs might be tomorrow, but we built a system with that in mind so that way when tomorrow comes, you can solve the problems and continue to move your business forward. So today we're going to show you our Mercury Conference solution. I'm going to explain to you, we're going to kind of walk through how we envision the conference life cycle. And as we do that, I'm going to show you a number of our exciting features, such as interactive calendars, our automatic booking process that we call the Bookerator, as well as the ability to roll over the requirements from a camp, so that way you can very easily create copies of a camp week to week, or perhaps a recurring customer that's coming back next year, as well as configurable reports. Here at RMS, we kind of think of the camp, event, and conference on a spectrum. So on one side of that spectrum, you have multi-day camps. And I think an example can be helpful. So it might be a STEM camp or a basketball camp that wants to use your institution for accommodation. So they need overnight housing bookings. They might have a recurring meeting space where they use the basketball court every day, or they use a classroom every day. They might need to book equipment and staff that use that equipment, as well as dining needs if they need to use your lunch hall, or they need a catered dinner in a specific place, and miscellaneous bookings. On the other side of that spectrum, we can also facilitate single day events with Mercury Conference. So that might be a TED Talk or a coffee group that comes to your campus. So at 8 in the morning, you might have a keynote speaker in which you book an auditorium. And in that facility, you have an AV set up, you have staff, and you have coffee breaks delivered to that location. And then at 11 a.m., you might have 5 different classrooms that are all booked with breakout equipment and a catered lunch delivered to each of those classrooms, as well as miscellaneous bookings. So in the single day, you have these nested bookings that are all affiliated with a particular facility location. And our clients use Mercury Conference for one side, the other, and anywhere in between. Inside Mercury Conference, we have a designated client structure in which all of your clients have to start with a source organization. So some examples might be your university football team that needs to host a camp, or the American Red Cross that wants to come to your institution for a camp, conference, or an event. Those organizations host conferences. So the football team might host a preseason or a summer training camp, whereas the American Red Cross might have a blood drive in the summer and CPR training in the winter. So they can have a number of conferences from that organization. And then those conferences will have a designated staff person. And here we call that an external conference staff. So Jenny might be assigned to lead the blood drive for the American Red Cross, whereas Coach Jones might be assigned to lead summer camp for the university football team. This is the life cycle of how we envision a camp, conference, or event being ran at your institution. So there's a number of stages that we're going to walk through today. The first is planning, and that's when you're taking in a request to use your institution. You're using those details to create requirements that you can use to generate a quote. And then once your customer has confirmed that they actually want to move forward with that quote and that pricing, you confirm that it can be a booking. Then you move from that planning requirement into a resource allocation stage in which you're going to make room reservations, you'll upload attendees, and you'll make room bookings as well as additional facility and equipment and dining bookings. You'll then move into your fulfillment and resolution stages, in which your boots on the ground are going to be managing the conference, arrivals and departures, check-ins, checkouts, etc. And then you'll be creating invoices and doing reporting for your customers. So in the initial stage, when you're taking in a request, this is the beginning of our planning stage, we offer a feature with Mercury Conference called a customer portal. And like I mentioned at the beginning, just about everything I'm going to show you today is an example of what your business process might look like in Mercury. It might look completely different. So whereas our customers allow you, or our competitors, allow you to configure maybe the color, maybe add your logo, we think that you should be able to configure the process from beginning to end. So that image on the screen is just an example of what that landing page might look like on your customer portal, in which they can submit a request, view and accept quotes, manage their attendees, sign contracts, submit payments, etc. The video that we're watching on the screen now are the steps in which your customer might go through when requesting to use your campus. So they would input their conference name, how many people are going to be attending, where they might want it to be, the start and end date. And again, everything on this page is configurable. So if you want only text fields, if you want more drop-down options, if you want more yes/no options, all of these components are configurable to your business needs. You can also have plenty of documentation or picture uploading, and you can make these components required if you want your customer to have to fill something out before moving forward. You just saw at the conclusion, we offer a summary, as well as an automated message and correspondence. So we think that automation is really important. And you can set it so that when your customer is logged in, once they've submitted a request, they can receive an automatic email that says, "Thank you so much for submitting your request. We'll get back to you according to our timeline." So your staff has received that request, and they might use a feature that we offer in Mercury Conference to see whether or not you can facilitate that request. And what we're looking at is an image of our interactive calendars. These calendars can be thematically coded. So you see gray, blue, and navy on your screen. In this instance, the gray are requests that have come in. The blue are quotes that we've created, and we're waiting for the customer to accept it. And the navy are booked conferences. So when a request comes in, your staff can use our interactive calendars to determine, can we even accept this request? Do we have the capacity to host this conference? And instead of just looking at it in a list view, you can look at it in a calendar view. You notice the icons on each of these camps. So if we zoom in a little bit, you notice that this calendar creates a really good bird's eye view in which the icons represent the requirement needs of these customers. So you see under knitting and napping, there's a building, and there's a computer screen, those icons mean that that customer needs a facility and they need equipment. Whereas under Tiny Tot Soccer Skills, there's a bed and an apple. That means that that camp is asking for accommodation as well as dining, in addition to a building and some miscellaneous requests. As you're moving through the planning stage, after you've submitted or after you've received a request, you're going to be able to create and review quotes. Your customers can log back into their customer portal to accept those quotes, submit deposits or payments, as well as sign contracts. And all of this can be a part of your workflow. So if you want this to be a part of, if you want contracts to be distinct from collecting deposits, or if you want them to be connected on the same template, all of that configurability is available in Mercury Conference. So we just watched a request get submitted. And if I pull up my interactive calendar, we see that that request is sitting right here. This is our live demo. And I said that our calendars are interactive, so I can click on this calendar and I can convert it into a quote. So by looking at the calendar, we can confirm, okay, you know what? We have a couple camps here and here. I think our capability is just fine. So let's turn this into a quote. This way we can provide some pricing for our customer. So the data that our customer typed in their portal gets fed in. And this is a similar template, but we're running it on the administrative side instead of on the customer side. You can give your quote an expiration date. In this instance, we'll say the day before the camp. You can assign managers. Again, all of these components are configurable. If you want to have additional comments, you can also mark that this is private, so your customer won't see these comments on their portal. And our customer told us that they need housing. Specifically, they said that they have 2 males and 2 females. They want to live in singles, and 24 males and 24 females that are going to be in doubles. So we can build out housing requirement groups. So that way, when we get to the booking process, it can be that much faster. Again, everything that you're looking at is configurable. So when I select daily linen, we have these rates that we have pre-configured to automatically input a charge. Similarly, because we selected a single room, our housing rate automatically pops up. You might have preferred rates for your internal customers or for your repeat customers. And because I've put this data in, but we have females as well, I want to simply duplicate this group and then change this group to female. Now we need our 2 youth groups. You notice that when I create a new group, it assumes the full count of the conference. So we need to make sure that we tell it we only have 24 in this group. When I select double, the rate automatically changes because we have the double rate configured. And for our youth, we'll say that they only need an arrival service for housekeeping, whereas our adults, we gave a daily linen change. Oh, we're just going to duplicate this. Change it to female. I see a question came in that my institution is a StarRes campus. Can I discuss how it is or is not integrated with Mercury Conference? Right now, RMS is a part of the StarRes family. And I know that the StarRes platform has a conference product, but right now they are distinct product platforms. So the Mercury housing product and the Mercury Conference product are distinct from the StarRes products right now, but we're all in the same family with an even larger support team. So our camp also said that they had some other requirements than just housing. So I'm going to create a facility requirement, and these are all of the different types of facilities that we offer at RMS University. You can have pictures of what those facilities look like. They need a large meeting room. And when I select this room type, it then shows me all of the configurations of that room type that are available. So if our customer wants a banquet style, or if they want this room set up in a boardroom style. In this instance, they want a classroom style. And then when we put in a time, the rate then is configured because our default is set to hourly. You could charge a flat rate, full day, half. Again, unlimited configurability. Our camp also said that they need a sports field. So from our facility types, we'll select a large outdoor sports field. And we just have a standard configuration. And our camp also needs some audiovisual equipment in that classroom. So we'll say that we're going to select a full AV presentation. And we want that to be during the same time. I need to make sure that I put in my time for my sports field. Then our rate pops up. For our sports field, we might charge a flat rate of only $500. So you can figure this in real time. For our AV setup, we might also need a staff person. Someone who's fully capable of running the university's AV. And they said that they want breakfast and lunch daily. Now, if we had maybe 3 parents that wanted to attend for breakfast every day, we simply change that count, but the system is automatically pulling the data because we said we had 52 attendees. So that's what it's assuming that we need. And lastly, you can also have miscellaneous requirements. So anything that is inventory based, non-inventory based, and then not included in those categories. So in this instance, your campers might need wristbands, or they might need access cards. And whereas your breakfast is defaulted to a serving for 55 people, you might also charge a flat rate for a full breakfast buffet. Our wristbands default to a unit price. So when we click finish, our request has now been converted to a quote. And whereas previously on our calendar, this was in a gray, if I refresh our calendar, then in real time, we can see that it's been converted to a quote and that it now has these requirements associated with it. Once you've converted your request into a quote, you move into the resource allocation stage. Your customer has that quote pending on their portal. You might require that they accept that quote, that they pay a deposit, that they sign a contract, whatever you need for your business. And then you move into allocating resources from your institution for your camp or event. In this stage, you can make reservations for your housing accommodations to prevent any kind of double booking or to hold off rooms. And an important distinction here is that a reservation isn't a booking. So you can make a reservation without actually having attendees uploaded or in that place in order to hold it, so that way you can make that booking faster later, and your other staff who are looking at your calendars can see that that's been reserved. At the resource allocation stage, you also upload attendees and group them based on the housing requirement groups that we just typed out, as well as create roommate groupings if you want. And by doing that work, you can very easily make your booking process automatic. We'll move to the Mercury site in just a minute. But the last stage is fulfillment, in which your boots on the ground manage the check-in and check-out process of your attendees, as well as maybe keys or equipment distribution. You have housekeeping that's available inside our Mercury Conference solution. And then you can also assess fees, create invoices, as well as easily configure reports. So let's take a look at some of that process. So from our calendar, we converted our request into a quote, and you can live on these calendars. So I can convert this quote into a booking. Our customer has reviewed the quote, they've accepted it, and they want to move forward. So we're quickly reviewing what their requirements were. And now that request has been converted to a quote, and that quote has been accepted by the customer, which means we can move into the booking phase. So when I go to, this is our Mercury administrative site, there's a number of things that I want to show you. The first is our menus. So on the left side of your screen, this is a configurable menu. And when you click these buttons, they take you to a number of Mercury entities, whether it's a report, an operation, a template, such as completing a booking, or a dynamic list. In this instance, because we now have a conference that has been confirmed, we'll go to our dynamic list of all conference bookings that have been confirmed. We see at the top of this list, we have a search bar. And in order to clean up our view a little bit, I can copy our conference ID. And we can filter this dynamic list down even further, because now we're looking at all confirmed conferences. And when I refresh this list, now we'll only look at all confirmed conferences that have this conference ID. This is the list of your data. Like I said, it's completely configurable. If you want to change the order of this data, if you want more or less data displayed on this list, it's whatever you need for your business. On the left side of the list, you see that we have our favorite action buttons. And this is what we're going to process throughout our fulfillment stage. But not everything we could possibly do from this dynamic list fits in one of these icons. So we also have our More Actions button on the right side of the screen. And this is all of the possible actions we could take with our conference. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to reserve some housing accommodation for them. The pencil icon, again, all these icons are configurable. We just chose a pencil because pencils have erasers. You can make edits to that conference. The push pin is going to make a housing reservation. So when I click that push pin, it pulls up this reservation operation. And the first thing you see at the top are our separation rules. The system is asking you to configure it because it recognizes that you have these 4 different requirement groups that we input earlier. We said that we've got 2 different chaperone groups, male and female, and 2 different youth groups, male and female. So how would you like those to be reserved? In this case, we want our adults to be reserved at the room level, our youth to be reserved at the floor level. And then how do you want those groups to be separated? So we can separate adult groups of a different gender by room, youth groups of different gender by floor, and so on. Then one at a time, we can make housing reservations for these groups. So if I click the Manage button, this window shows me our 4 requirement groups and the housing options that I can make for a reservation. In this instance, we want to reserve the 2nd floor of Gray Court. And we see that this floor is actually booked by a different group up until the day that we need. And because we typed in that private chat to us and our other staff members, we know that this group is a little bit rowdy. We want to put our adults in the corridor of this floor. So you notice that when I type just 1 in, it tells me that we still have 1 unfulfilled because we have 2 adults that we need to reserve single accommodations for. When I select both ends of the corridor, rooms 201 and 214, those rooms have now been reserved and this group has been fulfilled. We can do the same thing with our female chaperone. We open up in our community, Wellington College, the building of Gray Court, the 3rd floor of Gray Court, and we'll reserve those corridor rooms. Now our youth, we said that we want to reserve by the entire floor. So when I select this youth male group and I drop open my Gray Court 2nd floor, it doesn't give me the option to select the rooms because I told the system I want to reserve at the floor level. And all of these rooms are available. You notice that when I close at the room level, it tells me on the 2nd floor, it's full up until the day that we need it. And then I can reserve the remainder of that floor. And then I can do the same thing with our youth or female attendees. We'll reserve the remainder of the 3rd floor. When I click Save Reservation, those rooms have now been reserved. Now remember, they haven't been booked. All we've done is created our grocery shopping list and said, these are the things that we need. And now we have made a reservation for those housing assignments. So the next button in our favorites action is to upload our attendees. You can select an Excel spreadsheet that you can have configured so that way it is very easily mapped. And with a click of a button, your attendees can be uploaded to your camp. And we also want to make sure that these attendees get assigned to the right groupings that we built out, because we don't want a youth male to end up in the adult male grouping and so on. You see just how quickly it assigned them. When I edit this operation, it'll show me the passes that we've pre-configured to say, if this gender matches, put them in this group. If this age matches, put them in this group. And we can look at those results to confirm that it worked appropriately. So just like before, these are our 4 housing requirement groups. If I click this little arrow, it opens them out. And we also see that because our attendees uploaded these roommate sets, then it honored those roommate pairings because they said Craig and Brandon are both group AA2. From this page, you can very easily pick up Stephen and make him into a roommate group with Antoine, or do the same thing with Eric and Joshua. And you notice that the code is different now than it looked for our customer because this is a system generated. This template that I'm looking at can very easily be managed by your attendees, or sorry, not by your attendees, by your external conference staff. So this template we saw earlier had the manage attendee button on the customer portal. You can tell your attendees, we're not going to handle the roommate matching. You have to upload that data in your portal before you arrive to campus. In this instance, we also found out that Lindsay and Kristen want to be roommates, so we'll put them together. And now we finished assigning our attendees to the groups that they're supposed to be in. And because we've done that work, we get to watch some magic. So I told you that we have automatic bookings. This operation we call the bookerator. These are our 4 housing requirement groups, and they also have the people that we have paired to those groups. Well, if I open our male chaperones, I can click and drag them and put them here. But I already have a number 1 because I've already reserved that room for group number 1. So all I have to do is press this green button and it automatically books them where we have them reserved. We can do the same thing with our females. Now, we said these kids were rowdy. Specifically, Joshua and Eric are rowdy. So we want to pick those up and make sure that they're right next to a chaperone. And Paul and Timothy are rowdy. So we're going to put them next to the other chaperone. And the rest of these boys, it doesn't matter where they're booked as long as the roommate groups are still honored. So we press our green button. And it fills up the rest of your reserved rooms. Now, I could show other rooms that are available or all that we have nominated for this conference season. I don't want to redo these bookings. But in this instance, I'm telling the system, show me only the rooms that I've reserved because I've done that hard work of reserving them. So those are the only ones I want to see. And because we reserved the remainder of the 3rd floor for our group number 4, all I do is press that green button and it automatically books them. Now, maybe Caitlin and Jacqueline had a COVID scare right before they showed up. So I easily press this red button, it unassigns them. And now we see that all 52 have a booking slot except for those 2 that we just pulled back. So I simply press create bookings. And the dialog box shows that all of these bookings have been processed, 50 out of 52. I can very easily book those 2 girls. I don't have it as a favorite here, but all I have to do is click on more actions that I want to manage attendees without bookings. Now, this is a dynamic list of only attendees that are in this conference, and they do not have a booking yet. So as I mentioned before, the configurability of Mercury, you can have all kinds of dynamic lists pre-configured. In this instance, this is a pre-configured dynamic list of this conference attendee without a booking. I click our magic wand and it says, hey, Caitlin is assigned to this conference booking, and these are the nights that that conference has as requirements. Do you want to book her for all of those nights? We absolutely do. If Caitlin also wanted to stay on your campus for an additional 2 or 3 nights, all we have to do is press this green button and it adds that next night. And if we press this I bill column, then you could charge her individually for that night instead of that night also going on to the conference bill. We're going to book Caitlin. And the system is saying, hey, she's in group number 4, and you have these rooms reserved for group 4. Do you want to put her there? That's exactly what we want to do. And we're going to do the same thing with Jacqueline. You notice that both of them drop off of this list because this is a list of that camp attendees without bookings. And now we don't have any. All of our attendees have bookings. So I go back to our dynamic list. And we've completed our housing assignment bookings, but we also have a couple other needs that our camp said that they would like to use while they're here. So we're going to book our additional items. This window is showing all of the requirements that we typed in earlier. So these are the facility requirements. These are the equipment requirements. So again, we built out our shopping list. We said that we will need a large sports field from these dates during these times, and we need one of them. So this table is showing what those needs are, and this is showing us what our inventory options are. So we could mix and match, and notice that as I select these dates, I'm getting these green checks because it's fulfilling those requirements. To make it even easier, if they just are happy with our North Campus sports field, I click all dates. It satisfies all of those requirements, and I can create those bookings. If your customer had typed in notes about maybe they need certain things set up on the field, you have access to those notes right here on your booking page. See, our dialog box created the bookings for those days from 7 to 12 daily. Our large meeting room booking requirement, when I open that up for a week long, although we have a lot more inventory now. We have a number of large meeting rooms. We don't just only have 2 sports fields. So I could satisfy by clicking all dates, or if I needed to filter my options down further, I can edit this condition and say that I only want to see large meeting rooms that have an AV setup. So I hit OK. It's going to clear out what I currently have selected. And now you notice our inventory shrinks because we worked with you as our client in implementing this product to build out what your inventory options were, what the configurations of those spaces were. And you told us that these are the only large meeting rooms that have an AV setup. I can add an additional condition and say, I not only want an AV setup, I also need a podium in that space. And when I update that, it drops down even further. I can edit the condition even further and say, I only want a large meeting room that has an AV setup with the podium, and it is specifically in Hall A. There's one inventory choice that satisfies all of those conditions that we built on, and it fulfills our requirements, so I can create the bookings. You notice that in this instance, the AV presentation isn't available because it's already booked by Riverhawk Baseball Camp. So we would not be able to fulfill. We can select these dates, but we would have to go back to our camp requirements and reduce by 1 because we don't have the AV presentation available for that day. We do have AV staff. Your dining and your lunch aren't inventory based, but we still think that it's important that you can use Mercury Conference to create those bookings. So that way down the line, you can notify your dining staff of what your needs are. And we'll do the same thing with our wristbands that are not inventory based. So we have reserved rooms, uploaded attendees, assigned those attendees to groups, booked those attendees in housing accommodation that we reserved, and we have booked additional facilities. Now, I mentioned earlier that you have users of the Mercury system, and those users have configurable roles and positions. So you might have a front desk staff that when they log in, they might only see 1 or 2 of these linked targets. You might want to have a user for your housekeeping staff. So when they log in, the only thing they would see would be this housekeeping link target. The reason I say that is because your front desk staff might check in this camp now that they're here. Your check-in might be a different dynamic list with a favorite button. In this instance, it's on more actions. We can very easily manage the check-in and check-out process of our full camp. And you can do this one at a time. So for example, our chaperone here, Mr. Fred Ball, we press this green arrow and it can check him in. If I pull this down, you notice that our check-in and check-out data was blank. we might issue him key ABC 123 and indicate that he's picked up a welcome pack and a wristband. And now that data has been updated in real time to indicate that he is checked in. If the rest of the boys arrive shortly after him, everyone that's on our second floor, we can also do check-ins in batch. So I've now selected everyone else that was on the second floor. And instead of on an individual level, I go to actions for selected. I can batch check in and key issue. And now all of this data gets filled in real time. Mercury is 100% web-based. So this check-in, check-out process that we're watching right now could be done on a phone, on a tablet, as well as on a PC at your front desk. And now that our campers are checked in, the not last thing, but one of the most important things that we need to do is be able to make some money from this camp, right? So we can assess their fees. And we can tell Mercury that we want to see a summary before you assess it, but I want to assess all of these bookings that have a charge associated with them. And our summary tells us that we've got 364 room bookings that we're assessing, 32 housekeeping bookings, 16 dining bookings, facilities, equipment, etc. So we'll create a bill for our customer. And now you can either show this in a simple summary, in which you have your accommodation charges, your dining charges, etc. Your customers can download this. Or you can provide a detailed summary in which every single booking can be displayed for your customers. So we see this is Fred Ball. This is his conference booking. So this is his room in room 201 for every night that he stayed. And then we move on to the next person for every night, and so on and so forth. So this long list are all of our room bookings. And if I scroll down far enough, then we also see a page break where there's our dining bookings, as well as our facility bookings and our housekeeping and miscellaneous and staffing and so on. You can also very easily create a new group by rolling over the requirements of this group. So we put in that time of explaining there are 4 different housing groupings, that camp also needs a facility by way of a sports field and a facility by way of a classroom. So we want to roll over those requirements because maybe they're coming back again in 2 weeks with a new group of people, or maybe they're coming back again next year. So I go to my more actions and I say create new group using rollover. And you can roll this over into a request, a quote, or directly into a booking. And they might be coming back next year. And in this instance, it was from a Saturday to Saturday. What we want to do is look at the calendar and move it and say, okay, this one was from Saturday the 12th in 2022. And what will that look like in 2023? That's going to be Saturday the 11th to the 18th. You can roll over the same attachments and notes. Sorry, Cindy, I saw you. I'm just finishing this point really quickly.
That's all right. I don't want you to get cut off. That's all.
And then just that easily, it creates that new conference booking. So if I remove this filter from our list and show me, they're back again, ready to enjoy your institution. Yes, Cindy.
No, I'm just worried. Or at the end.
Oh, we had time. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you didn't get your last thought in there. Did you? I mean, yeah, we're at 12:20. So we are at the end. Were you at the end of your presentation, or did you have more to share?
Yeah, the only final thing I wanted to share was that you also have configural reports. So every aspect of data that you have in the system comes with countless reports, and anything that isn't easily pulled out, we're going to walk with you to make a custom report. We think Mercury Conference is an ideal solution for your camp's events. And if you need to contact us, please reach out to sales@rmsinc.com. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Cindy.
All righty. Thank you, Josh. We'll be sharing your slides. If you want to give me the link, we're going to share all the information out to the registrant. So,
Would love that.
okay.
Thanks,
Great.
Cindy.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.